Shruti-smriti-purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad-pada-shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra-bhashya-kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah-Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti-bheda-vibhagine Vyomavad-vyapta-dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. In this session, we will take up the Prasnopanishad, which also belongs to the Atharva Veda. And as the title suggests, it is consisting of 6 questions that were raised by different munis to Pippalada Maharshi. So let us see who all asked the questions. We quickly run through the questions that were asked and the answers, and how mainly 2 of the, or 2, 3 maximum questions are, the answers to them are also directly talking about Brahman. So Sukesha, son of Bharadwaja, Satyakama, son of Shibi, the grandson of Surya, born of the family of Garga, Kausalya, son of Ashwala, a scion of the line of Bhrigu, born in Vidarbha, and Kabandhi, descendant of Katya, all these who were devoted to the inferior Brahman, it is said, which means Apara Brahman or Hiranyagarbha. That means they were all dealing with Karma Kanda, because he's called Karya Brahman. So when you are involved in doing rituals, Karma Kanda, the deity that you are trying to attain is Hiranyagarbha, which is called the inferior or Apara Brahma. So they were all engaged in that kind of karma kanda, and engaged in realizing the inferior Brahman and intent on a search of the supreme Brahman. All of them approach. How does a person who wants to learn from somebody approach in the Upanishadic context? They take faggots in their hand because they want to come out of karma, and they've seen the futility of karma so far as attaining or realizing Brahman is concerned. So when they come to understand Brahma Jnana from a guru, they come with faggots in hand as a symbol of that karma kanda they want to leave. And so they all approach with faggots in their hand the venerable Pippalada, with the belief that this one certainly will be able to tell us all about it with capital I. That means Brahman. Now, you see what is the first question, who asked the first question, and what was the question. Before they asked the question, they came and told Maharshi Pippalada, you please tell us about this Brahma Jnanam, give us this Brahma Jnanam. So what does the Guru do? So it's also very important to note in those days. To them the seer said, live here, that is in his ashram, for a year in a fitting manner, again with control over the senses and with brahmacharya and faith. Then put questions as you please. If we know, we will explain all that you ask. So look here how much tapas one has to do before getting an answer from the Guru. This we saw in Taittiriya Upanishad also. And in almost all Upanishads, we see this. It shows the method. So now the first question is asked by Kabandi, the descendant of Katya. And he asked after that 1 year, Venerable Sir, from what indeed are all these things born? So, again, the Srishti Kriya, in almost all the Upanishads, there will be discussion. Because everyone has to explain, if this Brahman doesn't do anything, how is this world come into existence? So, I am not going to detail out the answers given here. So, that was the first question. And into that, he says that, it was sun, verily, prana, and then food is verily the moon. Whatever is gross or subtle is but food. The gross is distinguished from that, subtle is subtly food, and so on. And then from the same thing that we learned in Taittiriya Upanishad, how from one thing the other came. and then the discussion about Prajapati, who does the creation, and the ways, the two margas, Dakshina and Uttarayana, the dark face of the sun and the bright face of the sun. That means those, this is Krama Mukti, we say, those who are doing, a lot of upasanas and karma. One marga, it's a very long method and very difficult. So that is why one resorts to Vedanta, that is the method of Jnana Yoga. So that was the first question. The second question is raised by Bhrigu, born in Vidarbha, and he asked, Adorable Sir, how many in fact are the deities that sustain a creature? Which among them exhibit this glory? Which again is the chief among them? Actually, these deities, devatas, are none other than in our own body all the indriyas. So you have got the prana, you have got all the five panchabhutas. So you just put in the form of a story this question that the panchabhutas, among themselves said, I am big, I am big. If I am not in this body will not work. Silently, prana was listening to all this. And he proved, he started leaving the body. Everyone said, no, 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 you are the supreme among us. Okay, we all agree. Because if prana goes out, nobody, none of the Indriya, none of the Devatas, Indriya Devatas will be able to exist at all in the body. So that's how this thing starts, and then they praise prana, and then the example again of the wheel of the chariot is given, and that everything is knit together, as spokes in the wheel of the chariot, and the Srishti Kriya, or the creation, how it took place. This particular Upanishad, in its own style, tries to explain how prana came and all that. The third question is raised by Kausalya, son of Ashwala, who asked, "O Venerable Sir, from where is this prana born? How does it come into this body? How again does he dwell by dividing himself? How does he depart? How does he support the external things, and how the physical?" Now, let me tell you, it is here that the whole Vagvritti, Pranavritti, Manovritti, etc. is discussed in this question's answer. How the first the prana comes into through the cement to the mother's womb and all that, and then it's grew. At some point, the prana, along with the Prajapati, enters the fetus, and that's how the life enters into it, and it grows. And this, without the Prajapati, the creator, who alone is the sentient being, prana is a jada, it is inert, it cannot function. So then this prana, till the prana is in this body, along, because the jivatma is also there, till then this body's every parts will be functioning. One by one, when it is decaying, what will first happen? The karma indriyas will stop. What we talked of is vak vritti, then mano vritti, then prana vritti. I'm not going into the details of that in this, but this is what is the answer in the third question. So on the Prasnopanishad. Now, the fourth question is asked by the grandson of Surya, born of the family of Garga. So it's Gargeya. No? He asked him, "Oh, adorable sir, which are the organs that go to sleep in this person? In this person, which keep awake in him? Which is the deity who experiences dream? To whom occurs this happiness? In whom do all get merged?" And this is very similar to what we have learnt in Mandukya Upanishad. Here also, in a similar way, it is being explained that, you know, the three states, what are they, how they work, and what happens in the deep sleep state. So here the example is given. I think I've seen this example in gospel also. To him he said, "O Gargeya, just as all the rays of the setting sun become unified in this orb of light, and they disperse from the sun as it rises up again, similarly all that becomes unified in the high deity, the mind. Hence this person does not then hear, that is karmendriyas, vagvritti is taking place, that does not see, does not smell, does not taste, does not touch, does not speak, does not grasp. Therefore, people say he is sleeping. But then his prana is working, the manovritti has to take place, finally the pranavritti. So all that is explained in this portion. Then comes the next question, which is the fifth question. Now the fifth and the sixth question are quite crucial to understanding of the what you call Brahman. Now here, next, Satyakama, son of Shivi, asked, O Venerable Sir, which world does he really win thereby? Who among men intently meditates on Om in that wonderful way till death? To him he said. You see, again, Omkara Upasana is coming here. But here, through Omkara, again, as we know, that is a link between the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So, through the medium of Upasana of Omkara, the Jivatma can attain Brahman. This is the sum and substance of the main thing here also. So, it is said that now I'm not reading out everything. The three letters by themselves are within the range of death, but if they are closely joined one to another, are not divergently applied to different objects, and are applied to the three courses of action, external, internal, and intermediate, they are properly resorted to, then the man of enlightenment does not shake, that is, remains undisturbed. So, again, in the wakeful state, one should be able to recall the deep sleep state through the meditation or upasana of Omkara. Now, let's come to the sixth question because this is more crucial for us. Then Sukesha, son of Bharadwaja, asked Pippalada Rishi, Venerable Sir, Hiranyagarbha, a prince of Koshala, approached me and put this question. Bharadwaja, do you know the Purusha possessed of 16 limbs? To that prince I said, I do not know him. Had I known, why should I not have told you? Anyone who utters a falsehood dries up root and all. Therefore, I cannot afford to utter a falsehood. Silently he went away riding on the chariot. Of that Purusha, I ask you, where does it exist? Where does he exist? So, here the answer given him is to, I'm not reading the deliberately the Sanskrita portion. The answer given in the second mantra is to him, Pippalada said, O amiable one, here itself inside the body is that Purusha in whom originate the 16 digits or limbs. So again, it's talking of this Pratyek Atma or the Atma within what are these 16 limbs. Let us see. So, let's go to the next. You see, because there is a lot of objection raised and answers are given. See, and the deep sleep, what is happening. For example, one objection raised is since even consciousness is not perceived in sleep just because it does not exist, then therefore it follows that knowledge in itself is inconstant, just like an object, because it is changing from one person to another. Answer is no. For in so far as knowledge that reveals its objects is an illuminator of its objects, just like a light, the absence of knowledge during sleep cannot logically be inferred. That is what we had seen in Mandukya Upanishad, that in deep sleep awareness is there. The same thing is reiterated here. Certainly, the nihilist cannot imagine the absence of the eye when it fails to perceive color in darkness. Does it mean that eye is not there? It's not seeing because it's too dark. So, the same Nastika Astika dialogue goes on, and the knowledge and object, they are not actually different, etc. He says, and let's come to therefore the next answer given. The who deliberated, who created this world, as a result of whose departure shall I rise up, and as a result of whose continuance shall I remain established. That is he, the Purusha, endued with the 16 parts, about whom the son of Bharadwaja inquired. made these deliberations on, that is to say, he penetrated into the subject of creation, that is, result, order, etc. How he did so is being stated. Kasmin Utkrante, which particular agent having risen up from the body shall I myself become, which continuing to be established in the body shall I remain established. This is the purport. Again, it is as logical to look upon the self as the doer as to conceive of it as the enjoyer. Actually, there is a discussion going on between the Sankhya's and the Vedantin. Since I am not going into the detail of this discussion, I will keep myself confined to our small purpose of seeing how Brahman is explained here. Again, Srishti is explained. eh? He created prana. From prana, he created faith, space, air, fire, water, earth, organs, mind, food. From food, he created vigor, self control, mantras, rites, worlds, and name in the worlds. Having deliberated in the way stated before, he, the Purusha called Hiranyagarbha, that is the repository of the organs of all beings and is the inner soul of all. So the answer is it is this Hiranyagarbha. But remember, Hiranyagarbha is Apara Brahma. So there will have to be another step to prove that this Hiranyagarbha is none other than Brahman itself. So from the prana, he created Shraddham, faith, that is the source of stimulus for all beings for good action. From that, he created the great elements that support by becoming the material constituents of the physical body, which is therefore vehicle of enjoyment of the fruits of actions. Then he created space. Then from there he created, wind or vayu, and from there agni, and then what you call water, and then earth. Like that, all the elements come into exist, and then he creates the food and all that. So this is all very similar to what is said here. Uh, so here the illustration is given, just as these flowing rivers that have the sea as their goal get absorbed after reaching the sea, and their names and forms are destroyed, and they are called merely the sea, so also these 16 parts, the constituents of all seeing Purusha, that have the Purusha as their goal. You see, what is explained is here also that we must keep constantly remember for whom is all this created. Who is the one who is using the hands, or using the mind, or using the eyes to see, the nose to smell, the feet to walk, the hands to give. All this for whom? It cannot be for hand's sake. Hand is created for somebody. Eyes are created for somebody. That is that Purusha. And these are the 16 parts of that Purusha. But once the Purusha realizes his real nature, that is Brahman, all these get merged in Brahman. Then it has no parts or 16 parts or nothing like that. That is the main message that comes out of this Prasnopanishad. Again, here also, they are giving the example of the wheel of the chariot. You should know that Purusha who is worthy to be known, and in whom are transfixed the parts like spokes in the nave of a chariot wheel, so that death may not afflict you anywhere. Um, you see, if I'm not wrong, in Buddhism also somewhere they use this wheel of life, or which is got all these various spokes in it. So that is one thing that is told about, one example, and Thakur gives this example of that all these sea rivers with different names, once they join this ocean, they lose their identity. We read about it in a previous Upanishads too. Having thus instructed them, the disciples, Pippalada, said, I know this supreme Brahman thus far only. Beyond this, there is nothing. That means all this that you see is Brahman only. Without Brahman, none of these can function. Whether it is prana, whether it is the five elements, that is the akasha, vayu, or what you call space, wind, fire, all the five elements, water, earth. None of them can function. And they have all been created for somebody. And that somebody's real intrinsic nature is Brahman. That is how, from this very world, Brahman is existed. Here, I would like to quote one statement from Shankaracharya that had there been no world created, there would have been no way of knowing Brahman, which is Nirupadika, which is, doesn't have any forms, it is formless. But the forms are necessary to understand the formless. So, how can the formless be different from the one with the form? Because only through that you are trying to understand it. यदि हि नाम रूपेण व्याक्रियते तदा अस्यात्मनो निरुपाधिक रूपम प्रज्ञान घनाख्यम न प्रतिख्यायेत. Had I not created all these names and forms, there would have been no way of understanding that Nirupadika, that Brahman without any attributes. Now, one more point which we should know about Brahman with attributes and Brahman without attributes, or what is meant by Visheshana and Lakshana. The Satyam Jnanam Anantam that we talked about, and this is not part of particularly Prasnopanishad. There's a general point about what is meant by Visheshana Lakshana. Or I can spend another session on that with you. Maybe today we will conclude at this point. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृतेत् स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. हरि ओम तत्सत्.